Welcome back to Hovey Smith School of Self-Reliance. And now we're going to start on lesson 3 of Make Your Own Job Anytime, Anywhere, at any age. We human beings evolved over a period of several million years. And we, as a species, outcompeted a number of our close ancestors who are now extinct. And how did we do that? Physically, we as a species are not as big as some of our Neanderthal competitors, for example. They were more powerful, individually robust individuals as a rule. Oh. Well, how did we Homo sapiens make it and they did not? Well, one thing about us is that we have a very long childhood compared to other species. We also have a longer total lifespan than other species. Neanderthals were fortunate if they survived until their 40s. We know from bone records, which are extensive now, that many died in their teens and 20s from various reasons, but mostly because that was how they genetically developed. They developed faster than we do as children. They grew larger than we do as children. They became adults sooner than we do. So what advantage of that was to us? Well, that allowed a longer period of training. And this training through childhood developed social skills and significantly language. We were able to more effectively pass on information from generation to generation, so each new generation did not have to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. Well, how did that in effect work? Well, as it turned out, it worked very well for us. We made it. The Neanderthals and the others now are long gone. We know them only from the fossil record. So, how does that impact you today? We can't get very far from our historic roots, or we start running into trouble psychologically, and sometimes physically. Loner individuals can be very, very creative. And I count myself as marginally as one of these. I like to work alone. I prefer to work alone. But for most people, they are more productive in a collaborative situation. And that relates directly to our genetic inheritance. We like to be around others of our species. Dogs like to be around others of their species, just to give another common example. So we work better together. All right? So get used to that idea. Another advantage that we have is that we have a larger brain development. Although brain size per se is not necessarily all that advantageous. The Neanderthals had a larger brain than we do, so far as brain size goes. So brain size is not the end all and be all, it's what you do within it. And the longer training, all right, makes the brain more efficient, it grows better, makes more connections, blah, 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 and we're able to speak and communicate. Written language was a very great advantage to modern species. with written language, you could pass on information from generation to generation. Oftentimes this information was meaningless or incorrect, but nonetheless you could pass it on. And good things were passed on from generation to generation. You could see what your ancestors did, you could see what you can do, and you can figure out how to do it better. And that's, in few words, what this course is all about. Teaching you how to look at things and determine how you can do it better. Bang! All right. What basic issues are we faced with? Survival. Well, that's pretty basic. Whether you're going to live or die. Yeah. Now, you say in modern day that's not really important and so on and so on and so on, but it can be. And for many of us, it will be. As a general rule, once in your lifetime, you're going to be placed in a survival situation by natural disaster. So to count on that one. If you're unfortunate, you may be in multiple such events, depending on where you live. And that's what my outdoor books are about in part, like backyard deer hunting. And this has a good chapter on how to survive in survival situations. In flood, in famine, and so on and so on and so on. How you gather and make your own food. This is animal-based. All right? And practical bow fishing, I tell you how to take fish, an aquatic species. And again, what to do with them once you get them. How to cook them, in other words. Then, in crossbow hunting, I tell you how to use the most efficient killing instrument outside of firearms. In areas where perhaps you don't like firearms, you don't want to use firearms, or you cannot use firearms, or you cannot possess them. All right, what about crossbows? Are these an option that can help ensure your family's survival? Then, I summarize just about everything else in extreme muzzleloading, which is an outdoor field that I've been concentrated on during most of my writing career and have become something of an authority on this subject. And for a decade, I was a corresponding editor for the Gun Digest Annual, one of the most prestigious books in the entire genre. So, this is what survival is all about. And you got to have air, you got to have water, and you got to have food, and hopefully these will all be safe to consume. So, once we get beyond survival, what was the next thing that happened to mankind as a species? We gather together in groups. Family groups first, then dispersed homesteads, then towns, and then cities. And what happened were things were exchanged. You make one thing, pots, I make another thing, cloth, and we swap these needs. I grow food. I need wood products. We swap these needs. This is barter. Now, barter works also in the modern day. Maybe you don't have money to buy something, but you can do something for someone else and get their services. I did that when I published Extreme Muzzleloading. A company wanted to use my articles in one of their publications. Very well, I said, yes, you can use the articles and I won't charge you anything for it, but I need to have this present book edited and made ready for print. So that exchange was made. And I saved several $1,000s in the production of extreme muzzleloading by swapping my rights to my article to services I needed and resulting in publication of a useful book. So, if you can't pay for something, maybe you can swap services or exchange products or something using barter situations. And barter came along before the invention of money even. So, again, yeah, this is a possibility even today. Next in evolution, people accumulated things and others wanted them. So, what did we people do? We tried to take it from them, and oftentimes did. So, this ultimately arose a need for an army, both from an aggressive point of view and from a protective point of view. The idea of a citizen army to hold back the invaders, well, yes, and then you also needed to build walls around your cities. The early cities didn't have any. Boy. But other people became envious, they were attacked, they needed walls, they needed protection, and they needed to establish a well-trained, protective army to defend themselves. With the advent of military forces, food and treasure were not the only things taken by force. People were too. Slavery was a very significant part of the ancient societies. Food and treasure was not the only thing taken by these invading armies. And we see this in the Bible when the Jews were taken to captivity in Babylon. Well, this was common, and this physical labor provided much of the force needed to build things like the pyramids and other heroic structures, construct the city walls, do the public buildings, make the roads, and so on and so on and so on. These slaves contributed much to society. Now, we do not legally have slavery today, although it still exists in the world. I have no doubt about that. There are also, of course, the rise of individual professions and the system of apprenticeship, where a person would go to work with a master craftsman, learn the art, and maybe, if he was really lucky, inherit the business after the master got too old to work. Well, this sometimes happens. It still happens in Europe today, where apprenticeships are fairly common yet. If you were a cobbler, your son would be a cobbler, his son would be a cobbler, and so on and so on and so on. And ultimately, this kind of concept gave rise to unions, where a person is restricted to a given class of work for as long as he's a union member and doing that job. This lack of flexibility is very detrimental to creative impulses. If you can't get out of your work area to think of anything else, then you're stuck. Well, that is an adverse effect of unionization. It stifles creativity. Also, with guilds, you had co-ops being formed. This is where workers and guilds would cooperate with each other to help advance something. Generally the food industry, say, or generally the textile and garment industry. This might be a cooperative association where the members of different guilds or individual shops join their efforts for a common cause. Workshops. The workshop system preceded the modern factory. If you were a gun maker, one person would make your locks, another the barrel, another the stock, these would be sent to some central facility where they would be assembled. Later, with Colt among them, you've had the factory assembly line production, where uniform parts were produced in a factory, all of them interchangeable. Wow, that was an amazing concept. Then the person did the same kind of repetitive work each day and became quite fast and quite efficient with it. Henry Ford, of course, did the same thing famously with his automobiles, with his assembly lines. And this became the modern way of making things through much of the 20th century. Now, we're in the 21st century, and things have changed indeed. Modern assembly line manufacturing is obsolescent. It is much cheaper now to have CNC machines do the work. Yes, you need somebody to design it, build your prototypes, but the actual work on the production floor is done almost totally by machines, including the transport of parts from place A to place B. So, workers are getting forced out of their jobs. The new plants are being built. They require many fewer workers, so thousands are now going unemployed or are in danger of going unemployed. What do you do? Well, again, you start your own business. What can you sell? Well, you can sell things you've made. All right. If you work for a factory, if you work for an industry, yeah, you probably can't compete against the same category of stuff, but you can do something else. But a more lucrative and easier path to follow is to sell knowledge. That with services, like plumbing or other things of that nature, are some of your most valuable and viable outlets in most modern societies. What do you know that nobody else knows that you should know? All right, that's selling knowledge. So you do your thing, you write your book or whatever, and you sell what you know to other people who wish to learn it. The gig economy. Well, we've discussed that at some length already, so I won't go into that again. But, yeah, this is a situation we're in. You may have a job for as long as it lasts, and then bang, it's over. And you've got to look for another similar job or do something else entirely. Now, I want to talk about the workforce itself. What would be, in an ideal world, the ideal workforce? Well, in my opinion, this workforce would combine all elements of society, although not doing the same job. These are not interchangeable work units. People are not those, although many try to make them that. No. Workers are individuals, and they should be treated as such, and you expect different things from different age categories. There are two generally underserved parts of the workforce. These are teenagers and senior citizens. And how do they differ? If you're a teenager, you're hopefully and probably physically fit. You're able to do much more in the way of physical activities than, say, your granddad can do, than I can do. So, you need some young, physically capable people in your workforce. Teens are typically acquisition-oriented. They want stuff, they want things, Some are absolutely frivolous in the eyes of the rest of the world. But yeah, they want these things and they want to earn money to get them. On the other end of the spectrum, as seniors, yeah, we've sort of gathered all our stuff, and we, frankly, many of us don't need or want any more stuff. I mean, we've got quite enough, thank you very much. But we need some money to survive and to support our lifestyle and do what we want to do because of all of the factors that we discussed previously. Young people are quick to learn, and it's easier for them to absorb new information in new situations. We older folks are somewhat slower in this regard, but we already have accumulated a very, very large store of both knowledge and, equally important, experiences. And both of these are significant. Young people are typically more adaptive. We older folks are oftentimes referred to in my part of the country as set in their ways. That is, that's the way they've done it, and that's the way they're always going to do it. And this is something that, as an older entrepreneur, you have to sort of guard against and fight against. Teens oftentimes will accept challenges more readily than their older relatives. Don't want to really try anything new, but should try something new oftentimes. The teens these days are media savvy. They seem to be welded to their cell phones, blah, 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 as if they were an integral body part. And soon they may in fact be. But we older folks, not nearly so dependent. The teens are in tune with modern trends. We older folks really don't much care. If we can see something and take advantage of it, we will in the way of business opportunities. But that's not really our thing. One can easily grasp from the foregoing discussion that yes, an ideal situation would get intergenerational input to form products or services directed towards today's market needs. And this is something that we're going to discuss in the future. On our next lesson, we're going to talk about your particular characteristics at the time and evaluate them as to what your attributes are, what your shortcomings could be, and how you can overcome them and found a successful business.